Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Unlock Your Confidence, Navigating Imposter Syndrome for Graduate School webinar. We're excited that you're here with us today. My name is Stephanie. I'm one of the enrollment counselors with the online program supporting Ohio University. The session will contain about 30 minutes of information along with a brief Q&A at the end, but please feel free to post your questions in the chat and we'll answer those as we go along. Today's webinar is hosted by Professor Elizabeth Guarino. Professor Guarino brings extensive experience in human resources to her role as Associate Director of Graduate Career Management and Engagement at Ohio. She earned her master's degree at Ohio State University in higher education with an emphasis in career counseling and management. Elizabeth offers practical real-world guidance for career success at all levels of an organization. Her former roles include Chief People Officer for Raising Cane's of Ohio and Senior ROI Analyst for JWT Diamond Promotion Service. Elizabeth also started, owned, operated, and sold a 15-year consulting practice in the HCM human capital management space. She's passionate about cultivating joy at work and leading strategic initiatives that bring human goodwill straight to bottom line business results. With that, I'm pleased to introduce Professor Elizabeth Guarino.
Thank you, Stephanie, and hello, everyone. I'm glad that you're here joining us this afternoon. We're obviously going to talk about some of the material related to imposter syndrome, but if this is your first time interacting with anyone from Ohio University, I thought it might be fun for me to serve as an ambassador and teach you just a couple of things about what it's like in Bobcat Nation. So, Ohio University Bobcats, right? One thing to teach you first, and that is the saying that all of us say when you encounter someone. So you say to someone, "Oh, you," and the person responds, "Oh, yeah." So that's one of them. And then the second one, you'll notice on your screen, I put the OU kind of large in the middle word there on the title slide. And that's because at OU, you'll often see that we'll change words. Anytime there's an OU in a word, we'll tend to capitalize it just because, you know, OU, oh yeah. So, two fun things about what it's like to be at OU. So let's get into the material. We're here to talk, obviously, about imposter syndrome, and we'll start off by learning some of the origins of where did this come from. As I was doing research for our material, one of the things that I found was very interesting is the term was actually born in the late 70s. So it's been a while that the term has been around. There were two psychologists, Clancys and Imes were their last names, and they actually were doing the study with people that were in a higher education setting. So it's interesting that the term was born on the campus. They spent a lot of years talking with people who were highly accomplished professors. So these were people that were known in their area. They had done research, they'd done talks, they'd gotten grants and awards, that type of thing. So professors, administrators, and students that were in a higher education setting. And the one thing that all of them shared was they were worried about being found out as a fraud. So they had all these accomplishments, but they still were kind of feeling like, yeah, somebody's going to expose me as someone who doesn't really know the topic or the material. So they would attribute all of their success to things like working really hard, so that 24/7, you know, kind of live your life for your topic or your material, or they attributed their success to having mentors or people that kind of helped bring them up in their profession. And they all would say, I wouldn't be here if not for them bringing me along. So people with imposter syndrome, and at its very most basic level, is people who struggle to internalize accomplishments. So even though they may have done all this great stuff, right? They wrote a PhD dissertation, they got the awards, they got the accolades, but they still would say, yeah, these aren't important accomplishments. All right, so hang on, I'm getting my mouse situated. So a little further into understanding imposter syndrome, we're going to kind of go deep into what it actually is so that we can understand it. And then we'll work toward ways that we can address it and kind of turn it around as well. So obviously this describes a condition where people find it hard to believe that they deserve any credit for what they may have achieved. Whatever the person's outward appearance, they still remain internally convinced that they are frauds. So we might be able to look at some of the current pop celebrities, right, that are in sort of our world. Names like Kim Kardashian. We've all heard that name. We may or may not like the person that that name represents, but that person is someone who has been very clear and pretty open about how much they struggle with imposter syndrome. So the little graphic that you see there on the slide, as you start to look at it, you might come to notice or understand that at all times, sometime in most of our lives, we've kind of felt like, ooh, I really shouldn't be here, or I shouldn't be the one deserving of the recognition that I'm getting. So everybody feels like an imposter at some point in our lives. The question is, does that get in the way of us doing things that we want to do for our lives? So, for example, would imposter syndrome get in the way of wanting to pursue graduate school? So here are some favorite phrases of people who struggle with imposter syndrome. You may see some of those phrases and perhaps pick out ones that may have crossed your mind, or perhaps maybe you have even said those out loud on occasion. The reason that this happens is because people don't feel confident in taking the credit or saying, yeah, it was me and it was my hard work that got us to where we wanted to be. So in graduate school, you'll find that there are many models, right? Theorists have developed models, economic models, sometimes social models. Sometimes it's even organizational or leadership types of models as well. So this is an example of the model that was actually developed by the people who coined the phrase imposter syndrome. So this is Clancys Model. This was in the mid-'80s. So after some years of them developing this concept of imposter syndrome, they then started to put some structure around it. So you'll notice with the model, start in the upper left corner, that achievement-related task. So usually the prompt or the thing that begins those feelings of imposter syndrome, and for some it could actually be a trigger as well, it's a task that I need to demonstrate something that I am seeking to achieve. So if you follow along to that arrow, you can see that the response is anxiety, self-doubt, or worry. And the psychologists who developed the model found that there were two basic paths that someone might choose. They don't usually choose both. They tend to choose one or the other, and sometimes they'll switch back and forth between the two. But we either procrastinate, and if we procrastinate, if you follow that dotted line down, we'll attribute our success to luck. We'll say, yeah, boy, I really pulled that off, kind of thing. On the left side, instead of procrastinating, then we get into that hyper preparation mode, right? We're hyper vigilant. we hyper prepare. We expend effort. We're studying for a test. We've gone through everything that the instructor says we need to, but somehow we think, well, maybe I need to read the book that was the origin of this thing that the professor says I need to know. So then we kind of get in the weeds, right? We go into a tangent where we're over preparing for the test or whatever it is that we need to do. So we get to the thing, right? We have a feeling of relief about it, like, oh, good, thank God that's over, right? Someone says to us, hey, you did a pretty good job with that. If we are struggling with imposter syndrome, what happens is all that stuff that's in that box. We'll think, oh boy, thank God they didn't find out that I was a fraud. Or, yeah, maybe that was okay, but I could have, should have, would have done something else to make it better or different. Or perhaps it's done, now we're spent, now we're not sure where we want to focus our energy afterwards. So perhaps we kind of go into a depression, or it might actually make us feel even more anxious because we did that thing, it turned out okay, somebody said it was okay, now we have to keep that up, right? So the whole idea, when you call something a syndrome, the whole idea is that it's a set of behaviors and thoughts that get in our way from where we want to be or who we want to be kind of in our daily life. All right, so what are some possible roots that could have perhaps been that fertile ground where those imposter thoughts may have kind of taken hold for us? So we might see in our early development, so this is age of 7 or earlier, okay? We might see that maybe somehow we were identified as the smart person in the family. This one I can really identify with, because people might say, yeah, you seem so intelligent. And I'll think, oh my gosh, I have so many smart people in my family, right? In my larger family. However, in my immediate family, I had a parent who did not value education. So I would actually get mocked as a kid when I would show up with A's, or if I would show up with, something that I did in school. So for some of us, it could be that any time that something doesn't go exactly perfectly, that's our proof that we really are the fraud, right? And we really are the imposter. Maybe you may have been the person that worked really hard in your family. So things didn't always come easy to us. So we came to understand that if we ever really wanted something that we valued highly, we had to work so hard in order to get it that we wouldn't get something that we wanted to achieve if we just kind of walked into it, right? It required that extra effort. And then the third one is perhaps there might be parental or adult figures in your life that weren't necessarily supportive of those achievements, right? So if we decided that we wanted to try to accomplish something that perhaps our family or our family of origin or the folks that were around us that were raising us didn't necessarily value, we came to understand that that accomplishment was our way forward for the life that we wanted to live. So we became kind of survivalists in our perspective about how much we needed to work or how hard we needed to work in order to get to that. Okay. I know I'm spending a lot of time on the definitions. The reason I'm doing that is obviously it helps first to be real clear about what that definition is as we move forward. And in graduate school, that's something that people spend time on. So in undergrad and perhaps the grades coming up before college, there's a lot of pressure about pacing and timing and getting things done and productivity. In graduate school is where you find that, yes, there's still that expectation for the work to get done, for the assignments to be completed, but the difference now is the caliber of thought. How clear are you? How convicted are you in your beliefs? And by conviction, I mean, how strong are you in your beliefs? And where are you getting those beliefs? What's your research that's leading you to that conclusion? So graduate school becomes much more about the caliber of thought or the caliber of knowledge. All right, continuing on our imposter syndrome and understanding. So there are generational dynamics to imposter syndrome as well. About 7 out of 10 of us experience imposter syndrome at some point in our lives, but it might be brief. It might not be something that sticks with us for a long period of time. But we do know that if you happen to be a first-generation college student or college attender, that came up in the research a lot. So first-gen students were highly cited in the initial research. There's also a very high occurrence of imposter syndrome in marginalized populations. So women, Black, Indigenous, people of color, the LGBTQ plus community. So any population or group that has been kind of marginalized or set aside historically tends to do that really intense self-examination that can sometimes lead to imposter syndrome as well. Millennials, if any of you attending happen to be millennials, boy, you're the generation that got it the most. And the reason for that, we'll get into a little bit more detail in a second, but the reason for that kind of goes back to that trophy generation label that has been put on millennials as well. I'm a Gen Xer. Thankfully, my generation struggles the least with it. I think we've become kind of the war veterans of the landscape of work and education. So we just kind of tell it like it is. And in Gen Z, very interestingly, it's almost non-existent because Gen Z has been raised with that tech stuff all over life, in school, out of school, at work, out of work. And so Gen Z understands that the answer exists somewhere. So there's a little bit less prone to imposter syndrome if you're Gen Z. I'm going to stop for just a moment so that we can all just kind of take a look at this slide and read. This is from the voice of a millennial. And if you happen to be tuned in and you happen to be a millennial, how much does this sound like you? So do you still feel like a neophyte? Are you accomplished in what you've done so far such that you've reached a certain level and you say, you know what, I think furthering my education is going to help me become even more of an expert? But do you have that little voice kind of back there going, yeah, but can you really cut it? Yeah, but could you really make it through graduate school? Can you really picture yourself with a master's degree, for example? That's what that imposter syndrome voice sounds like. The good news is, I think the model and the condition has been around enough that now there are challenges to it. So I do lots of webinars because my role at Ohio University is to provide career services, including coaching and webinars, to undergraduates as well as graduate students that are enrolled in all online programs. If you follow me or you start to follow me, there are students that kind of come to every webinar that I do. You start to understand that one of my disciplines is information. So information must be very relevant, very recent, in order for it to have weight in the career world, because our life and landscape has changed so much, especially with the pandemic, right? So you'll notice that all three of these articles have happened in the last 2 years. One of the sources is Harvard Business Review. The second is New Yorker. And then the third came from a Forbes podcast as well. So people are starting to challenge imposter syndrome. So I'm looking at our time, and this is where we get into kind of the reality of knowing that we've got 30 minutes together. This is part of a larger webinar that I would deliver. Actually, I'm going to deliver it tomorrow night, and it would be an hour of content, and then we kind of discuss. So we're going to quickly just sort of break down this model. You've seen it already, and I'm going to go through the concepts that will help you understand where and how you can begin to kind of reverse those effects of imposter syndrome. So if we take the model and we break it down, you'll notice I've given some color coding to some of the things that exist in the model. Some of them are the situations, that kind of orangish, goldish kind of color is what are the responses of the person that is experiencing imposter syndrome. And then the green bluish color is what is the perception of the person that's experiencing it. So you'll notice, we know that achievement-related tasks are the prompt. Look at the responses. Look at how much of that is anxiety, self-doubt, worry. We over-prepare, right? We attribute it to the effort, or we don't prepare at all. We're like saying, yeah, I'm just kind of blocking this out. And then we attribute our success to luck, right? We discount any positive feedback, and it can cause us to get into depression or perhaps contribute to a depression. So I'm going to just kind of skip this. I think I've made the millennial point. So the themes that we see with someone who is struggling with imposter syndrome is they're not real sure. They get these mixed messages. So a person who's really struggling is going to hear some words, and they're not going to let those words in. Hey, you did a really nice job, right? Those words are pretty straightforward. Someone with imposter syndrome is going to hear those words and not let them in and think, yeah, no, that's not true. Something is going on that this person is saying these words, but it's not really true. Our default mindset, we happen to choose stress, anxiety, depression, and anytime there's that positive feedback, we're saying no. So obviously, if we continue in this type of cycle, in graduate school or in our careers, we are going to lead ourselves into burnout, or we're going to limit the type or frequency of opportunities that might be presented to us or that we take advantage of. So for example, some of the graduate programs here at Ohio University have overseas travel associated with them. There are projects that you do as you're overseas. Well, if that's something that kind of gets in your way, if you think, yeah, I couldn't possibly do that, that could be something that could literally kind of be in your way. So what's the antidote? We're going to go through this real quick, like 3 minutes or less. So the antidote, again, very recent in the last 90 days in April. So the irony about struggling with imposter syndrome is you have to be successful in order to have it, right? In order to have it as it is intended or diagnosed, so to speak. So if you have not had many accomplishments in life, chances are it's not an imposter thing, it's more about support and confidence. Or likely, or similarly to that, if you didn't care, you wouldn't be in the throes of the imposter syndrome struggle, right? If you just kind of show up and you do your thing and you say, here it is, take it or leave it, you're not agonizing. So that also kind of helps you not be in the imposter syndrome way. So what we need to do is we need to break the cycle. This is where our meme life, right? These are two memes that for me, I find a lot of value in them. So there are, the one on the left, what really matters versus what are we obsessing about? And how possible it is to succeed, even if we have doubts, or even if we haven't done it before, or even if we say, yeah, I don't think this is for me, we still can accomplish things. 2 interventions are needed. First one is we have to look at the physical manifestation of what happens when we're in the throes of imposter syndrome. We have to understand that stretching and breathing, that maybe we have a little something, a trinket, a something that we hold on to. We put it in our pocket, we have it on our desk, we look at it when we're on camera, whatever that might be. Sometimes, truly, it can be what you're wearing. If what you're wearing is uncomfortable, it will stress you out because it's going to say, you're not where you should be, you're not where you should be, you're not where you should be, over and over. So check what you're wearing. The way that you hold yourself physically, the way that you breathe, can also harbor that anxiety or that depression. So sometimes we need to stretch. Sometimes we need to just go wash our hands in cold water. Washing our hands in cold water kind of shocks our system. We go, oh, that's cold. And it helps our brain kind of rewire into new and different thoughts. So physical, I'm really watching. I know I've got a minute. The second way that we might need to intervene with ourselves is mentally, with our mindset as well, right? Maybe we need to read our resume. Maybe we need to have a mantra, something that we repeat over and over. The one I use for myself, I am here now. There's a whole story behind that. We don't have time to get into it, but use a mantra, something that you can repeat over and over and over that replaces that voice of doubt. So here's our model again. We've seen this, right? Now, let's say we're successful in intervening in some of these patterns that are not helpful with us. So instead of looking at all the responses that we have that aren't helpful or productive, what if we say, I'm going to have new ones? Instead of worrying, or instead of, working overboard, maybe what if we do say, okay, I'm nervous about this thing. I'm worried about whatever it is that's coming up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some really good deep stretching. And I'm going to focus on my breathing so that I can get the oxygen that I need to help my brain and my body feel a sense of calm as I am going through it. I also am going to help myself understand that I'm here because I deserve it. I'm going to grad school because I want to help my life and those in it move ahead. So then what happens is when I get that positive feedback, instead of saying, somebody says, job well done, instead of saying, no, that can't possibly be me, what if I say, oh, wow, this person is telling me that I did a good thing, and I really value this person's opinion, and I'm going to accept their opinion. Just start with that. You don't have to let it all the way in, but just accept that. So then, if we look at that, instead of the old model, we might find a new one. Achievement-related tasks come up. We stretch and breathe a little bit. We help ourselves understand that we are here now. We do the thing. And then we let that feedback in and we absorb it. Now, this takes practice, obviously, but if we do it over and over and over again, we are going to experience more positive emotions. We'll be more present. And if we're not able to do it for ourselves, if we can think of ourselves as a really good friend, So think of a great friend or someone that you love that you'd be willing to go to bat for, right? All the things that we were willing to do for our loved ones. If we don't do it for ourselves, think about doing it for a loved one, and then put yourself in that place. And I know that's a hard thing to do. So all of that, hard to do. 3 minutes over. Sorry, Stephanie. It's hard for me to sometimes be brief. But if you have further desires to pursue graduate school for you, this is what you do next. You either call the number that's on the screen, you email to get started at ohio.edu, and you talk to Stephanie or a member of the team about how you can help yourself move forward in your life as you desire.
Thank you, Professor Guarino. That was a wonderful wealth of information. Again, thank you all for joining us here today. We do hope that you received some great takeaways and learned a bit more about imposter syndrome. Again, we'd love to hear from you with additional questions for our team. So please feel free to reach out to online admissions at 740-924-5725, or email us at getstarted@ohio.edu.
Do we have any questions?
I haven't seen any in the chat, but I do know there is a frequently asked question that does come up with students wanting to know, what guidance would you provide someone who's new in a leadership or management position and they struggle with guiding their team while also experiencing their own challenge with imposter syndrome? What advice would you give?
Thank you. Yes. So we do see this come up, especially in the graduate programs where students are advancing in their own career, wanting to be in leadership position, or perhaps they're new in a leadership position. So in those cases, if you find yourself wondering, how am I going to help somebody when I myself am not feeling very confident about something? The first thing that you can do is just disclose that a little bit to the person or the team that you're working with. So you can say to them, this is the first time I'm doing this, or I don't always feel so confident when I'm working on this thing. You don't have to say, oh my God, I'm a total mess and I shouldn't be here, right? You don't have to go that far. But if you can share just a little bit of insight about your own feelings sort of faltering a little bit, your own confidence faltering, it's amazing how much the brain does two things. One is the brain thanks you for saying it out loud. And the second thing that it does is it rallies to help you to succeed. So just saying a little bit, and then of course staying on course, right? You're not a machine, but you might say, this is really hard for me. Let's figure out what we want to do for whatever part of the project we're focused on. That, as simple as it sounds, is a huge help to your brain. So that's the advice I would give.
That is excellent. Thank you so much. Another question that we often get is, does imposter syndrome ever fully go away?
That's as unique as the person who struggles with it. With experience, it does subside. The research that I did says that it's completely conquerable. But for some people, especially millennials, it takes a very concerted effort in order for it to go away completely.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So I am not seeing any further questions here in the chat. So on that note, again, thank you for joining us all today. We again hope that you received some great information and have a little bit more insight into how you can overcome imposter syndrome, especially in looking at graduate school options for yourself. If you are looking at next steps, please don't hesitate to contact us at 740-924-5725 or email the team at getstarted@ohio.edu, and we'll get you in contact with one of the enrollment counselors. Thank you again for joining us. Have a great day.
Thanks, bye.